Today we'll be speaking about public shaming in Israel's elections. What's going on now about the head of Labour Party, Avi Gabai, what he did to Tzipi Livni on live national television. Rabbi Yonah Shari Tshuva says something amazing. He says that shaming someone in public is avak v'tzicha. And therefore, even a Ben Noach is mitzuva al zeh, k'mo v'tzicha. Rabbi Yonah Shari Tshuva says that shaming someone in public is like avak v'tzicha. How do you say that in English? It's like, even in English it's called character assassination. Killing me softly with words, killing me softly with words. So according to Ben Yonah, it's one of the 7 Noachai laws, just like a non-Jew is not allowed to commit murder, so a non-Jew is not allowed to commit spiritual character assassination either, and that would fall under shaming. So a non-Jew is not permitted to shame another human being either. It's like a spiritual murder. And let's see what the Torah has to say about public shaming, how far you have to go to avoid that. But again, it's part of avak v'tzicha, it's character assassination, even in English, and therefore it's one of the Noachide laws, falls under the category of not to commit character assassination or any assassination. If you look at side number 1, source 1, public shaming, is it a sin to die for? Side number 1, source number 1, he mitzvah, Bishol Chamiyah. Remember Tamar became pregnant, and Yehuda didn't know that who was the father? He was the father, right? So he condemned her to what? To be executed, right? So she's being taken out to be executed, and she sends to her father-in-law, side 1, source 1, Lema li'isha she'ela lo nochi hara. The man that impregnated me, these are his what? His signet ring, his staff, and she says, Haker no, please recognize Lamia chotemet, who is the signet ring, vaptilim, vamata, who is the signet ring, and who is the cord and the walking staff. So she could have said, you hypocrite, what are you condemning me to death? You're the father, you're the one that made me pregnant. But she didn't say that. She didn't say that. But she just said, the one that impregnated me, these are his Tudat Zahut. All right? His Tudat Zahut. Fess up. How do you say in English, Elisheva? Fess up? Yeah. Fess up, right? So, the source number 2, on side 1, the Talmud Bavli, Masechta Sotah, she sends to her father-in-law, and she says that these are the signs of the person that may be pregnant. Why didn't she admit who it was? So Shimon Meichai says, it would be better for a person to allow himself to be what? Burned up in a furnace, and not to shame someone what? In public. So therefore, Tamar didn't say who the father was. She didn't want to shame Yehuda in public, and therefore she was willing to what? To die, rather than expose him in public. Okay? So the question is that an actual halacha? Is public shaming a sin to die for? Or did she do Maisa Chasidut? Is it a halacha? Or is it, we know it's not one of the big 3, or is it one of the big 3, right? The entire Torah has to be transgressed. What's the greatest mitzvah in the Torah? Staying alive. Staying alive. The greatest mitzvah in Torah is to stay alive. If your life is in danger, you're supposed to desecrate the Shabbos, even eat on Yom Kippur. But there are 3 exceptions where life would not be worth living. There, if your life is in danger, you have to what? Give up your life rather than transgress. Avodah Zarah, worshipping idols, Gili Arayot, sexual immorality, Ushvichas Damim, and what? Committing murder. For those 3 sins, a person is obligated to what? To die rather than transgress. But all the other mitzvahs of the Torah, if your life is in danger, you're supposed to transgress, because the greatest mitzvah in the Torah is what? To stay alive. But these 3 cardinal sins, life would not be worth living. The question is, shaming someone in public, under which category does that fall under? it's not avodah zarah, it's not gilui arayot, and it's not shvichas dami. You're not actually killing the person, right? So let's take a look what the sources say over here, okay? Let's take a look at source number 4. See, source, this is what does the Rambam say about this? In Hilchot Deyut. Source number 4, the Rambam Hilchot Deyut. HaMechiach et chaveiro tchila. If someone wants to rebuke someone, there's a mitzvah to give rebuke, right? Lo yedaber lo koshot. You shouldn't give him tough rebuke until you shame him. Rebuke has to be given in a loving, sweet way. Otherwise, if you rebuke somebody in public, not only is it not a mitzvah, it's a sin. What's the sin? Avram, what's the sin? You shamed the guy in public. The Torah says, give rebuke, but make sure the rebuke doesn't cause a sin for you. How will rebuking somebody cause sin? It's a mitzvah to rebuke. And yet the Torah says, if you rebuke someone harshly in public, then you are guilty of what? Shaming him in public, and then you will bear sin. Kach amru chachamim, says the Rambam in source number 4, yochel ato mechichoi b'panav mishtanois. So you might think that you can rebuke someone in public, and his face has changed color. You know, he turns white, he turns red. It is forbidden to shame any Jew publicly, even if it means what? You're rebuking him. Even if it means you're rebuking him, you're not allowed to give rebuke in public. Rebuke has to be given where? Privately. If you rebuke someone in public, you become the sinner because you're shaming him. When shaming somebody, you don't get malchus. You eat pig, right? You shave with a razor, you get malchus, right? You wear shatnez, you get malchus. Shaming somebody, it's a terrible sin, but you don't get any lashes. Why don't you get any lashes? It's a lav she'ein bo maisa, because you don't want it, it's dibur, it's not maisa. Eating pig, wearing shatnez, you're doing a physical act. But shaming somebody, even though it's a terrible sin, oven gadol, but what? Technically, there is no lashes. Because you're not doing an act, you're only what? Speaking. But it's oven gadol. It's a terrible sin. Kach amru chachamim. What kind of sin is it? Hamal mechver barabim. Someone shames another person in public. Ein lo chelik l'olam haba, says Rambam. In source number 4, a person shames somebody else in public, he rebukes somebody in public, he loses his share in the world to come. Even a politician? Or except a politician, Avram? What do you think? I think even a politician. Ein lo chelik l'olam haba. Is politics worth it to lose your share in the world to come? Is it worth it? Lefikach, therefore, tzorech adam lizoer. A person has to be very careful. Shelo levayish es chavera barabim ben katan ben gadol. Whether he's an adult or a child, even to shame a child in public. He's only a child. You still lose your share in the world to come. Ze makor arba tzionah, makor arba. V'leikolo b'shem shu boshemenu. And also calling someone a nickname. Fatso, Four Eyes. You ever hear that? They used to call me Four Eyes because to wear glasses. Oh. They called me Four Eyes, right? So that's shaming somebody in public, and the person doesn't realize that for such an act, he can lose his share of what? In the world to come.
Is this the same as Koresh?
What?
Is this the same as Koresh?
No, Koresh is a, it's a good question. Karet, someone eats chametz on Pesach, Avram is chayav Koresh, right? Someone is Mechala Shabbat, is chayav karet. So this lady's asking a very good question. Is it the same as karet? That's a very good question.
I thought if you hit 50, you couldn't get karet
No,
anymore.
karet means either, the Ramban says karet is either a person dies before 50, or if he lives longer than 50, you can live to be 99, but the neshama is cut off from the afterlife. Here it doesn't say karet, it says ein lo chelik l'olam haba. Is it similar to karet? It's a very good question. Because when a person's karet, if he lives past 50, his neshama is cut off from the afterlife. He's like in the twilight zone. Is that the same as ein lo chelik l'olam haba? It's a very good question, and I'm not sure. You lose your share in the world to come. Isn't that the same or similar to karet? Now, a person can do tshuva for anything. So you humiliate someone in public and you embarrass them, you can lose your share in the world to come. But if you apologize to the person in public, if you apologize to the person in public, and he has to forgive you, then the sin is forgiven. But again, you have to apologize to him in public, and you have to ask him at least 3 times. On 3 separate occasions, you have to ask him in public. Please forgive me. I beg you to forgive me. So hopefully there's still hope for our politicians, right? That they can apologize to the one that they wronged in public, and they would get their share in the world to come back, right? So shaming someone, the Rambam says you're over alav, but he doesn't say anything about that it's a cardinal sin that you have to die for. So do we say that what Tamar did was halacha, or she went beyond the letter of the law? Because the Rambam doesn't mention this as a sin to die for. Sin to die for, he only mentions idol worship, avodah zarah, gilui hara, sexual immorality, and actual physical murder. For those 3, he says you have to die for. But for the sin of shaming in the public, Maimonides doesn't say you have to die for it. So was Tamar acting correctly, or was she doing lifnei mishura sadin? So that's the question that we have to deal with, right? So if you look at source number 4, the Meiri writes that this is not halacha. It's not the halacha because it doesn't say chayav. It doesn't say a person is obligated to put himself in an oven, not to shame somebody. The lashon is noach. What does noach mean? Would be easier. Easier. It doesn't say you're obligated. So therefore, according to the Meiri and also the Rambam, right, that shaming someone in public is a terrible sin, but it's not actual shofech damim. You're not actually killing the person because he's still walking around. So therefore, according to Meiri and the Rambam, a person would not have to give up his life to save himself. He would be able to what? Shame somebody in public. Because it's not listed as one of the what? Of the 3 cardinal sins. So perhaps the Tamar was not doing the correct thing, right? So look at source number 5. Tosfot the Masechta Sotah. On this Gemara, source number 5. It will be easier. It doesn't say you're obligated. It said noach. The word noach means it will be easier for a person to throw himself in an oven. So Tosa says, Kala yardim legehenom, oilin chutz b'shlosha. But Metziah says that all sinners descend to hell, and they all what? Rise up. Chutz b'shlosha. Except 3 sinners who committed the following sins are so bad that they descend to hell and they what? Stay there. V'chad minayu, and who's one of them in source number 5? V'chad minayu, amal nechler Rabbi. Someone that shames someone in public, the Talmud of Metziah says, descends to hell and he stays there. V'manami noch adam. It will be easier for a person, sheyival sofak eishes ish. You hear this? It will be easier for a person to have relations with a sofak eishes ish, and not to shame someone in public. You hear this? What does that mean?
Adultery.
It would be easier for a person to have relations with a woman that we're not sure whether she's an eishes ish or not. Having relations with a married woman besides her husband is one of the 3 sins you have to die for. It's adultery. But the Talmud says it will be easier for a person to have relations with a woman that we're not sure whether she's an eishes ish. It would be easier rather than what? Shaming someone in public. Who do you learn it from? Avram, who do you learn from? David HaMelech. David HaMelech, remember? David HaMelech had relations with Bathsheba. Now, she was not really a married woman. Did she have a get? Didn't have a get? And yet, Shimi ben Gera and the others shamed him in public. So King David says, you guys lost your share in the world to come. Because it's worse to shame someone in public than having relations with a woman. Maybe she's an Ashes Ish or not. Bathsheba was not really an Ashes Ish. But David took terrible taunts and humiliation from it. So we see over here that what? There are three sins a person has to die for. Bekuach nefesh, avodas kachavim, gilei rav shechas damim. But what about shaming someone in public? So Tosfos says that's not written meferish in the Torah. So the question is, so according to Tosfot, rather than shame someone in public, looks like Tosfos says you should rather what? Let yourself be killed and not shame someone in public? That's what it seems to say, right? Look what Rabbi Yonah says in source number 6. Sharichu Rabbi Yonah, source number 6. Shaming someone in public is avak. How do you say avak in English? Avak v'tzicha. The dust of murder. Avak v'tzicha. Halvanas panim. Ki pana, because his face changes colors. Right? It's like you spill blood. He turns white, he turns red. V'doimel v'tzicha. And it's similar to what? Murder. Right? The Chain Amru, source number 6. Rabbeinu Chazon Avracha Bab Metzia. Vashen ki tsar havana mar mimoves. The pain to suffer public humiliation is more bitter than death. Is that true? Kitzar halvana mar mimovet. According to Ben Yaina, to suffer public humiliation and shame is more bitter than death. Why is that, Avram? Why? Because when a person's dead, he's dead. It's over in a minute. But to live with the humiliation a whole lifetime, you have to live with that shame and guilt.
But it's not only that, you have to face people and things get around.
That's right, but once you're dead, it's all over.
Right.
But here he's going on living, and he continues to collect bushat v'cherpa. Continues to be humiliated and shamed.
To another country,
right?
Nobody knows.
Right? So in a way, it's more bitter than death, he says. I can almost asal b'metzia. La'olam yapel atzmoi b'tokiv shenoesh. It'd be better for a person to let himself be thrown into a fiery furnace and not to shame someone in public. And we learn it from Tamar. So according to Rabbi Yonah, Tamar did the right thing. That a person would be obligated to what? To let himself be killed rather than what? Shame somebody in public. Right? Yes? Yeah?
Didn't we just learn
He throws himself in.
shaming someone in public
Yeah.
is the same as shaming Hashem?
It's the same as shaming Hashem. Why do you say that? Because every person has a tzelem Elokim, right? Right? Every person has a tzelem Elokim.
Because
Go ahead.
Jesus said if somebody is shaming you,
Right.
you're not supposed to reply to it. You're supposed to smile at them because you're smiling at Hashem.
Ah.
That's a bit.
If you're on that level, what? Well, that's what King David. Remember? Shimi ben Gera was cursing out King David, remember? King David was running away from the palace because Avshalom rebelled against him.
Yeah.
And Shimi ben Gera was shaming him in public and cursing him. And King David said, leave him alone. Leave him alone. Hashem told him to curse and shame me. Did Hashem tell Shimi ben Gera to curse and shame King David? Shimi ben Gera was not a Navi. But King David was saying that no one can harm a hair on my head unless what? Hashem allowed it. Unless Hashem allowed it, right? So Dr. Abrams is raising a good point over here. You should be a mevater. You should be a mevater and not answer back. Are you able to do that? The Chofetz Chaim would say, Bizyonos is the best to Gehenim. Es kostet kein Geld.
Translate.
What?
The Chofetz Chaim would say, Bizyonot is the best Gehenim.
Bizyonot is
Someone shames you, and you don't answer back,
It's
is
a
the
tikkun.
it's the best of Gehenim. It doesn't cost you any money, he says, and there's no physical pain. The Chofetz Chaim would say when he was young, he used to go around selling his books door to door, the Mishnah Brura. People would shame him, slam the door in his face. They didn't know who he was. He says, now that I'm old and famous, nobody shames me. Chaval. Chaval, he said.
Because it's a tikkun.
It's a tikkun. But you have to be on the level of the Chofetz Chaim and King David, right? So now, Dr. Averson raised a very good point. When is it self-defense and when is it revenge?
It seems only
When is it self-defense and when is it revenge? If a person is cursing you out and shaming you, while it's happening, you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to answer back while it's happening. There it's not revenge. There it's called what? Self-defense. What is it revenge? Afterwards. Afterwards, the cow left the barn already, then it's revenge. But while it's happening, a person has a right to defend himself. The Sefer Chinuch says, just like a person has a right to defend himself from physical attack, he has a right to defend himself from verbal abuse. While it's happening. While it's happening. That's self-defense. Afterwards, that's taking revenge. So then you have to go to court and let the court redress it. But King David was on such a high level that even though he could have answered Shimei ben Gera back, he chose not to. He chose not to. He was Mavate Lagamri. That's a very, very high level. Not everybody can aspire to that level. In fact, the Zohar says, when did King David become the regular Rabbi in the Ma'aseh Merkava? The Ma'aseh Merkava, you know, God's holy chariot? There are four legs there. Who are the four legs? Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, and David HaMelech. When did David become the regular Rabbi? When? When he wrote Tehillim? After he didn't answer back Shimei ben Gera. And Shimei ben Gera insulted and humiliated him in the public. And he had a right to answer back, because that's self-defense. And he didn't. He rose to the level of being the regular Rabbi in the Ma'aseh Merkava. That's how high that level is. But again, that's not for everybody, right? You have to be a David HaMelech or a Chofetz Chaim, right? Because if you keep quiet, there's a chance that the people will say, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. If you keep quiet. We know shtika kaidah, dummy. So if you remain silent, perhaps you agree that the person is a lowlife, no goodnik. Right? But anyway, is it one of the three cardinal sins that you have to die for? As Tamar was willing to do. It doesn't say chayav. It doesn't say you're obligated to let yourself be killed. It says noach. Noach means what? Will be easier. But it doesn't say chayav. So let's see at source number 7 over here. Source number 7. The Binyan Sion, one of the great poskim, says, sheyesh din yarol vayavor b'avonos panim. And he says, yes, according to halacha, a person should rather let himself be killed and not shame someone in public. Because again, shaming someone in public is a form of what? Murder. Spiritual murder. Yeah. And yet the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch don't bring it down. The Binyan Sion wonders, if that's the case, how come we follow Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam? The Rambam and Shulchan Aruch should say that rather than shame someone in public, rather than do that, let yourself be killed. But the problem is the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam do not mention it. They don't mention it. So according to the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch, if your life is in danger, to save your life, you would be permitted to what? shame someone in public. How do I know, Chava? Because the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch only mentioned the 3 cardinal sins. They should have mentioned also what? Shaming someone in public. And since they don't mention it, so according to the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch, if your life is in danger, just like you're allowed to eat on Yom Kippur to save your life, you would also be allowed to what? Shame someone in public to stay alive. You hear the question, Ahmed? Because that's according to Rambam, because they don't bring it down. They don't bring it down that it's one of the 3 cardinal sins. Unless you want to say, Rabbi Yonah, it falls under Ritzicha. Maybe it falls under Ritzicha. But for such a, to give up your life, you know, it's not our life to give up. Right? It's not our life to give up. Famous Gemara in Bamasiya 62, 2 people are lost in space. Right? And one has a canteen of water and the other one doesn't have the canteen of water. Remember the show Lost in Space? Yes. Lost in Space, right? So I have the canteen of water and the other guy doesn't. If we share the canteen, both of us will die. But if I drink it, it's my canteen, I'll live, and the other guy will live. What's the halacha?
Drink your own water.
You have to drink your own water. You're not allowed to share it. You want to be a hero. It's not my life to give away. Hashem gives life. So rather, you know, it's very difficult to give up your life. It's only when you're allowed to. Only when you're allowed to. Because if you give up your life when you're not allowed to, then it's considered that you're committing what? Suicide. What? We'll see soon, right? See what the Rambam says. If you take a look at side number 2. Side number 2, getting back to Tamar. Side number 2, source 8. He mitzay, she's being taken out to be executed, like Joan of Arc. Remember? V'hi shalcha, and she sends the signet ring and the 2 datzahut in a sealed envelope to her father-in-law. Ve'elu b'hadya lo yamra. She didn't say, Avram Berkowitz, Rashi addresses your question. Rashi addresses your question in source number 8. Make my day. Rashi HaKadosh, Abraham. Source number 8. She didn't say Meferish, Eila Smanush Yehuda. She didn't say these are the 2 datzahut and the signet ring of Yehuda. She didn't. She sent it in a sealed brown paper bag. I remember those sealed envelopes, brown paper bag, double wrapped.
Before my time.
V'loya nihara. I'm pregnant by the guy whose 2 datzahut and signet ring is inside the sealed package. To the person that belongs, that these simonim belong to, he made me pregnant. Im yoda yoda. If he admits, vim lav, I get burned up, and not to shame somebody what? In public. You hear? Did she do the right thing? The Maharil, source number 8 on the Maharil, most of the psak of the Ramah, that we follow the Ramah, most of the psak Tzion Abba Maharil. Maharil writes, Maharil Katav, source number 8. You have that, Bila? Shetamar hichmira al atzma. What does that mean?
She did a chumrah.
She did a chumrah. You know? So according to the Maharil, Tamar hichmira al atzma. Tamar was a machmir l'fnei mishur sadin. The din says that you're not supposed to give up your life when you don't have to, and this she didn't have to because it's not one of the 3 cardinal sins, but she was a machmir. Machmidus machmayens, right? Dover ze eina poshut, because machlokas rishonim, if a person is permitted to give up his life even though he doesn't have to. Let's say a person wants to be machmir, right? Is a person allowed to give up his life when there's no din yahareg val yavor? If there's no din yahareg val yavor, the Torah says that what? To stay alive, you can eat on Yom Kippur. He says no, he'd rather what? Die, not eat Yom Kippur. Are you allowed to do that?
No. But people do it.
Rav Yosef writes in his Yabi Omer, there was a person that what? That the doctor said you have to eat on Yom Kippur, an old person, otherwise you'll die. He said, I didn't eat on Yom Kippur till now, I'm not going to start now. So he fasted, and what happened? Rabbi Yosef said that you're not allowed to say Kaddish for him. He committed suicide. He committed suicide. Don't be more religious than God. Look at source number 9, Chava. The Rambam is source number 9. Rambam Hilchas Yesod HaTorah. Kol mi shenema bo yaver vayoreg. Wherever the Torah says a person has to transgress and not be killed. Your life is in danger. You have to eat on Yom Kippur. You have to desecrate the Shabbos and not be killed. And he said, I want to be a tzaddik. Minerag v'lo yavar. And rather than transgress, he what? Lets himself be killed. And he doesn't transgress. Is he a hero? Harezeh mitchayev b'nafsho. Mitchayev b'nafsho. Source number 9. He has a din like he killed himself. Because the greatest mitzvah in the Torah is what? Staying alive. Right? There's a famous story of Chaim Soloveitchik. I wouldn't tell the story, but I heard it from Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, who his grandfather told him. In Brisk, there was a cholera epidemic in Brisk. Now, cholera in the early 1900s was a deadly disease. And the doctor of the town told Reb Chaim that if the people fast this Yom Kippur, their resistance to cholera will be what? Much higher. If they resistance will be lower. Thank you. If they fast, the resistance to cholera will be much lower. If they fast, the immune system would be exposed. There's a great danger they would what? Catch cholera. It's not a sure thing they would catch cholera, but there was a danger. Here, even though now they didn't have cholera. So Rabbi Yoshe Ber tells him, have the tape, incredible. Reb Chaim, on Yom Kippur morning, he got up and he made Kiddush. What? On Yom Kippur morning he made Kiddush? He made Kiddush in shul and he ate. Why? Why? Because he knew if he'd say you have to eat, they won't listen to him. Because they're machmir. So he got up and publicly he ate on Yom Kippur, because if we don't eat, we'll be exposed to cholera, which is safik b'kuach nefesh, it's not avadai, safik b'kuach nefesh, doiche kol Torah kula. So this great tzaddik of the generation, Chaim Alevi Soloveitchik, ate Yom Kippur in public. They're telling his congregation that just like there's a mitzvah to fast on Yom Kippur, sometimes there's a mitzvah to what? Eat on Yom Kippur. Because Yom Kippur is great, but the greater mitzvah is, Rabbi Yosef, v'chai bohem. V'chai bohem, staying alive, staying alive. V'chai bohem is greater than what? Yom Kippur. Right? V'chai bohem l'shulman. So he ate on Yom Kippur. So after he made Kiddush Avram and he ate, this guy walks over to him and he says to him, Reb Chaim, pas nish fadir. Why are you a mekel on Yom Kippur? Why are you a mekel on Yom Kippur for? He says, I'm not a mekel on Yom Kippur. I'm a machmir. I'm a machmir b'kuach nefesh. Don't call me a mekel. How do you say that in English? I'm a lenient guy. I'm a machmir. I'm a machmir on something that's more important than Yom Kippur. What's that? B'kuach nefesh. I'm a machmir. So even though you don't have cholera yet, there's a chance you might get it if you don't eat. I'm a machmir in b'kuach nefesh. Isn't that incredible? Chaim Soloveitchik, the Gadol Hador. That's how far it goes. That human life is so great that it overrides Yom Kippur. It overrides Shabbat. 3 sins it doesn't override: idol worship, sexual immorality, and murder. Because for those 3 sins, life would not be worth living. Okay? So the question is over here that I don't have an answer for. On side number 2, I think it's highlighted in yellow. You have that, Chava? Yes. Side number 2, it's highlighted on the left side. It wasn't just a question of her life. Professor Chaya, she was pregnant with twins. She took us, what's it called, amniocentesis? What's it called? She knew she's pregnant. Chava, how did she know? She took a test.
She could feel it. She just knew.
She heard the babies kicking, right? She felt them kicking, alive and kicking. So Tiana, you see side number 2 on the left side, Va'od. You want to read that? Yehuda. Va'od. Hareya Latamar Beit Iburim. The English word,
Pregnancies.
the English word, embryo. The English word embryo comes from the Hebrew ubar, not the taxi service.
That's a
Not the taxi. Don't mix me up.
embryo comes.
But right, Tiana, on the left side, you have it? It's yellow. Va'od hareya hoya Latamar Beit Iburim. Bimeya. She had 2 embryos. English word embryo, Avram, you see that? In her womb. Umi hitala lahargam. And who allowed her, you want to be a hero with your life, who allowed you to be a hero with what? With the lives of your unborn children. Orei ben Noach nera galaburin. A ben Noach is killed for killing what? A fetus. For killing a fetus. Are you getting this?
Also for abortions.
Ben Noach is chayiv for abortions. The Ramban has a famous, writes a famous letter. It's very strange. Abortion is a sin. But for a Jew, it's not considered murder. And for a Ben Noach, it's considered murder. An abortion. It's a pella why. But that's the halacha. And therefore, the Ramban writes that he was friends with a non-Jewish doctor. Yiddish Avram? And this non-Jewish doctor had a patient who had a very difficult pregnancy. And he wanted to perform an abortion. The Ramban says, let me do it. Because you're a non-Jew, you do an abortion, it's considered murder. And you can't kill A to save B. But if I do it, it's a sin, but it's not murder. But I'm saving a life, I can do it.
Wait a minute. If a Jewish...
That's very strange of Yosef. You heard what I said?
If a Jewish woman...
If a Jewish woman needs an abortion, she should go to a Jewish doctor.
A Jewish doctor...
Because if a non-Jewish doctor performs an abortion, it's considered murder. If a Jewish doctor performs an abortion, it's a sin, but it's not murder.
Why?
Why? It's a good question, Ray. Why?
Because the mother's life is she's alive.
So why is it different rules for? Why is it different for the Talmud Sanhedrin says? God told Adam, "Shoifech dama Adam, ba'Adam dama yishofech." If you spill the blood of one human inside the other, that's what it says in the text. God is speaking to Noah. It says, "Shoifech dama Adam ba'Adam." If you spill the blood of one human inside the other, dama yishofech. The guy who does that, his blood has to be spilled. So the Talmud says, how do you spill the blood of one human inside the other? Abortion. But that was said to Noach. It wasn't said to Am Yisrael. Very strange. So for a Jew to commit an abortion, it's a sin but not murder. And therefore, when the life of the mother's in danger, you're supposed to do the abortion because it's not murder. But for a Ben Noach, it's considered murder. And you can't kill A to save B. So therefore, the Ramban told his non-Jewish doctor friend, let me do the abortion. If you do it, it's considered murder. You can't kill A to save B. So the question is, how could Tamar condemn her 2 unborn fetuses to death? She's a Bas Noach. And for her, it will be what? Murder. So you think you're doing a mitzvah? It's a good thing that Yehuda fessed up. And who are those 2 twins? Peretz and Zorach. And Peretz happens to be the great-grandfather of King David. Of King David.
It's amazing.
Peretz happened to be the great-grandfather of King David. Good thing that Yehuda fessed up. He could have kept his mouth closed and no Mashiach. No Peretz, no Mashiach. Huh? Yes?
did Tamar see Yehuda as the father and herself as the mother of these two twins? And so she and Yehuda would be, her father-in-law, would be partners in their birth or in their death? And was
She sent a sealed envelope to Yehuda. She did not expose him. She was willing to die and kill her unborn fetuses, not to shame him in public. He opened up the envelope, and he says, the winner is, remember that? Elishav, you open up the envelope. The winner is me. Stop the execution, stop. But she was not going to do it. Okay? She was not going to do it.
If a non-Jewish woman has an abortion, that means she's committing murder.
It's like,
Doctor.
if her life is in danger, she has to do it. But not a non-Jewish doctor should do it. A Jewish doctor should do it.
Well, I'm talking about a non-Jewish woman. She
Right.
has an abortion.
It's a terrible sin unless her life is in danger.
Okay.
But it should be done by a, irony of ironies, by a Jewish doctor. Because for a Jewish doctor, an abortion is not considered murder, even though it's wrong. But for a Goyish doctor, it's considered murder because God told Noach, Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam, dama yishafech. And that was only said to Noach. That was only said to Noach. So let's get back to the two twins. Peretz and Zorach. What does Peretz mean? Break on through to the other side. What does Zorach mean? Shiny. Right? What do we need to know their names for? We know the Torah, Yosef, is not history, it's GPS. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Where you belong, right? Peretz and Zorach. What happened? Zorach stuck out his hand first, right? And the, what's her name? The nursemaid,
midwife.
she put, the midwife put a roite bendel. Let's get the roite bendel from. She put, no, I'm not joking. She put a roite bendel on, that this one came out first. What does it matter who came out first? Who gets a double piece of the pie? Who's the b'chor? Who gets a double portion of Papa's Yerusha, right? So that's why she put the roite bendel on, but he pulled his hand in, and then Peretz broke on through, forced his way out. Who's the b'chor? Peretz. Why? Because the hand sticking out from the womb doesn't matter. Who pops his head out first? So Peretz elbowed his brother in the womb. He elbowed him, and he pushed himself out. So he's Peretz. Okay?
Are you talking about Tamar's children?
Right.
Yes.
And the other guy was called Zorach, Shiny. Hey, Shiny, time for dinner. Hey, Shiny, time for lunch. Hey, Shiny, you want an oatmeal cookie? Why was he called Shiny? Avram. And why should I care? You sitting down for this? Zerach, all of his life, he could have been bitter. I could have been a contender. Who said that? I could have been a contender.
On the waterfront.
I could have been the b'chor. I could have gotten a double portion of the Yerusha. Papa's a rich man. I would have gotten a double portion. I could have been the father of the Mashiach.
I could have been king.
I could have been king. Peretz. All of his life, he could have been bitter. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. His father called him Shiny. Don't be bitter. You can shine on your own. So you're not the b'chor. You're not going to get a double portion of the pie. You're not going to be the Melech HaMashiach. But you can shine on your own. Every person can shine no matter what his matzav is. Don't be bitter. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Unbelievable message over here. He could have been bitter. But his father told him, you're going to shine on your own, even though you're not the b'chor, you're not the grandfather of the Mashiach. Get a life. Don't sulk and don't be bitter. We all shine on. That's why he was called Shiny. Isn't that incredible?
Be like this.
Shiny. Every person can shine on his own, no matter what his situation in life is. Right? Yes?
Why is he any different than Yaakov?
What do you mean?
Yaakov put his arm out, went back in.
No, Yaakov didn't do that. That's Yehuda and Tamar. No, Yaakov was holding on to the heel of Esav. He didn't put his arm out.
Oh.
Esav came out first, and Yaakov was holding on to the heel of, who are you calling a heel? A heel of But here, Peretz, Zorach actually stuck his hand out of the womb. Right? So she put a bendel on it. He could have been the Mashiach. He could have been the Bechor. Right? He pulled his hand back. So all of his life he could have been bitter. But he wasn't. He shined on his own.
What did he do to shine?
He shined. Well, whatever, right? He shined on his own. He accomplished on his own. That's why his father named him Shiny. We all shine on. Zerach.
Shining instead of shining.
A shiner. What? Zerach. Right? It's a common name.